Greetings. When we last left our group, they were trying to figure a way into Octavio's tower, and they'd come up with several ways to do it, and the party split to investigate those ways. Rorik and Ren going to cavort with the guards to see who could be bribed, and Martin and Tiny doing a little bit of investigation on site to see what they could see about getting into the place. Martin and Tiny had a little bit of an unfortunate run-in with mercenaries. There were 5 of them, and I actually thought, oh, we're not going to make it. Like there is no good way out of this. And the dice fell where they may, but boy, I hope we don't lose Martin. He's sort of the main character. But we didn't. Martin and Tiny did escape. They fled the mercenaries. The group all meets back at the watchtower to discuss their findings. And they, Rorik and Ren talk about the guards and that they do have a couple candidates for bribing and what shifts they're on and so on. So they have at least a good idea if they need to go that route, but it is going to be rather expensive. Martin and Tiny talk about, the couple things that they found, including that supposedly there was an underground tunnel that there was rumored, I should say, to be an underground tunnel that the wizard used to get out in and out of his tower without being noticed. And that the tunnel presumably ran to one of the nearby buildings. And I think that, of course, they will also then talk about the run-in with the mercenaries, and Rorik will be somewhat concerned about that, of course. Especially because they weren't thugs. They weren't, right? They weren't press gangers. They were mercs, which means that, and I believe they can put 2 and 2 together in the sense that the press gangers were working for someone, presumably. That person was powerful enough and had enough money to A, hire the press gangers, but then B, to hire mercenaries, and see that this person knows who they are. And so I think Rorik's like, yeah, that means we need to get out of town we need to skip town as soon as possible, is I think what he'll say to the group. And Martin is like, I agree, we should skip town as soon as possible. And that means getting this done as soon as possible. To which Rorik knew that was the answer, but he was sort of hoping for the other answer, which is, yeah, let's go now. But he knew Martin was going to stick with it. So what about this tunnel? That sounds like the most promising way, then, Rorik says. And Martin is like, I agree, but I'm going to need 1 more day. We're certainly not going to be able to physically scout all the buildings around the tower. That's just not going to be possible. So give me 1 more day, and I will be able to find the building for you. And they look at him. All 3 of them look at him quizzically. What do you mean? Welcome to episode 22. On to the Hall of Records. And Martin says, well, easy. We'll go tomorrow to City Hall, the Hall of Records, and we'll look for buildings that Octavio owns. If he owns any. If he doesn't own any, we'll look for warehouses or residences, and we'll look for ones that are then, abandoned, perhaps in, maybe in disrepair. It's overlooked. There shouldn't be a. I mean, and it's true. It's overlooked, so there's not going to be a ton of abandoned houses. This is a relatively well-to-do area. So he thinks he can get some clues using administrate in the Hall of Records to either see where Octavio has bought a place himself or used a broker to buy a place, or has bought a place under, some kind of assumed name, and then like a warehouse with no records as to shipping or no affiliations with any, a storehouse that no tavern or nearby place owns, like that kind of thing. He's looking for clues in the forensic bureaucracy. And that's sort of what he's going to use tomorrow. I think for safety's sake, I think they all stay at the watchtower, and I think they all might travel together, even though that is somewhat conspicuous. I think that might be the way to go. Certainly a group of 4 is going to be less likely accosted than a group of 2. And if a group of 4 is accosted, they're going to have to bring a lot of dudes to City Hall to try to, get to bring them down. So I think that's what they're going to do. I'm going to roll a 1 in 12. And if a 1 comes up, then something will happen between now and getting to the Hall of Records. And we roll a 3. So I'm going to say that nothing happens. Are they being followed? Are they being tailed? Is Barnabas, the random press ganger who is left on the island, is he following them? Maybe. I'm not going to say yes. I'm not going to say no. And he might certainly know where they're at. But currently, the forces that are arrayed against our group do not act against them this night or tomorrow in the morning. In the morning, I think they go first thing that they can to the Hall of Records. It'll cost them, and I'll just mark off. I'm going to mark off a little bit of money. It's been a day or so, plus drinks, plus food for everybody. So we'll mark off 10 pennies for the night, and then maybe it probably costs them to go peruse the Hall of Records, so we'll charge them a little bit there too. Not keeping super close track of cash, but we will actually mark off their day or so, and their Hall of Records their Hall of Records entrance. And then Martin is going to make an administrate check. So administrate is useful for getting the cost of your alchemy down a little bit. Martin's actually fairly good at it because it's in his template, and his stats, wit and charisma, are both. So he talks to a couple of the clerks, right? That sort of thing. And he's going to look, and we'll say it's probably a DL10 to find some relevant information and maybe clues. If they just walked around the tower and thought, okay, where's this possible site? They might find 4 to 6 locations, and then they'd have to try to search those locations, and that would be very difficult, and they would probably draw attention. But if he can succeed, maybe they can narrow that down significantly, if not find the building. So Rorik is at a +2 on this, and he ends up with a +4, which is very, very good. It is very good. Let's do. Oop, I could roll 1d3 + 3. So there were 6 locations. And Rorik has succeeded. So 6 locations that they would have otherwise thought. Rorik succeeding by 4 will leave them, let's say, with just 2 locations that they think it might be. And I could just cheese it. I could spend an inspiration and add one to Martin's roll. Does Martin have any inspiration? He has one inspiration right now. I haven't given him inspiration back. I'm going to say that he uses it. He adds one to the roll. That gives him, he succeeds by 5 total. So he's like, no. Hold on. And he looks up something else, right? He's like, right? He finds 2 locations. Both of them have been purchased, around when the tower was put up, and they haven't changed hands since, whereas a lot of the other buildings might have done so. They are both storehouses, but neither of them has, neither of them has whatever other permits that Salem would have for loading, for having a place to load goods or, that kind of thing, right? He's looking for obscure laws that these places would have to follow. I'm sure Salem has them because most big Bostonian cities do have sort of an organized bureaucracy. What do you want to call it? Regime. That, right? Or I'll tell you what he does. He actually goes and he finds, and he has an inspiration, right? A little bit of an epiphany. And so he goes and he finds the one building that fits these criteria that was given an inspection waiver by the Baron. Done. He's like, I know which one it is. It's this building right here. It's close enough. No one ever goes in there. Blah blah blah. Inspections have been waived for the Baron for the next 20 years. And so he's like, I would bet it's that one. You can probably hear my knocking on maybe you can't because I have the GPU's noise suppression back on. And so, I mean, that takes just the morning because Martin's pretty good at this. Being a noble, he sort of knows all the various documents and stuff to look when building. And his family is a city family too. Like they were, Ismathian. I don't know what the people that are in Ismuth. Those nobles. And so they will actually then go there. And though the streets are reasonably busy, this place is a little bit out of the way because, of course, the wizard wouldn't want anyone to see him going in or out of. It's like the bat entrance to the bat cave, right? You don't want anyone to see you going in and out. That would indicate that the bat cave's there. So very similar, the wizard cave. You don't want that entrance to be right on the main street. And so it is in one of these side streets, these shady side streets that exist, a similar one to the one that Martin and Tiny were ambushed on the other day, catty corner to it, and they're here. But of course it is locked. And that's fine. Rourke is like, hold on. And he pulls up there, and he, of course, has a thief's kit with 3 picks. And he has a 10. I'm going to say that this lock is probably something like a 10, 11 or 12. It's 10 to 12. Let's say it's a 12. And so Rourke will, now obviously he's 2 down, so that sort of sucks. And his pick will break on a 1 to 3. And I'm going to let him roll because obviously the picks will break. And if the picks all break, then that's going to be a problem. But also, there is a chance that someone will come across them trying to break and enter to this place. If he fails, then I would probably say that you could use an acid vial on it, but I would like to save those for any combats, potentially. So we're going to have Rourke come up. He pulls out his picks. Martin's like, I didn't know you could do that. He's like, It's not something we try to advertise. And he's going to fail, but he does not break the pick, because that number, if that's a 1, 2, or 3, and you fail, you break the pick. So that is one try. We'll give him a couple more, and then we will see if anything, if there's an encounter. That one's a success. So he gets in on the second try. One failure. I'm going to say an encounter on a 1 in 12. He gets an 11. So no encounters, and they do get in. No picks broken. And Rurik, so we get some lesser used skills today. Administrate gets a check. Nice. I'm always happy when you can check administrate. In our tabletop game, there's a lot of administrate because Jeff is effectively playing a noble running a quote unquote an estate. So he does roll administrate all the time. Nonetheless, a campaign of adventurers, usually administrate's not a big one, but lockpick. We haven't had a lot of dungeon-y stuff, so here we are. So they go, and they are in this storehouse, and they're going to have to find the secret entrance, and so they go about searching this place. Where to put them? Let's put them in town. They're no longer in the tavern. Let's put them in town. They'll give you the town background. And they're all going to have to search. So we're going to search around and see what we can find. I think our best searcher is Rurik with track. And so he's going to be the one that is going to sort of make this check. I think Martin and Rurik. So we'll say that Martin has investigate. Rurik has track. We will allow Martin to assist Rurik. So we will go with Rurik's 11 in track. Keep in mind, because he has keen eye, so he gets +1 to search test when he's tracking. So he has an 11 in his search. We will give Martin the ability to use investigate to assist him. So we will roll 2d12. Oops. We will roll 2d12, take the better one. Unless that first roll is a 1 or a 2, in which case Martin will get in the way of Rurik. So the first die will be Martin, and it is a 10 or a 1. So the first die is not a 1. That's good. So we're going to give a 10, and we're going to give a 10 to Rurik's 11 search. So that is a 21. And now we'll roll, what is the GM roll? So the GM has to roll a d12 as well. And the GM rolls a 7. So they're going to succeed on a 14 difficulty. And indeed, the difficulty of finding this place is, a 12. Like that's about the DL we're going for at least most of this adventure, I think. I do tend to do that. I do tend to try to set sort of a generic DL for a region or for an adventure. And then I will go from there. Like if I think, something needs to be way harder or way easier than the basic DL. But in general, I'll go, this is about 12s. And so even a 12 is going to be hard for these guys on some of these rolls. But they do succeed. And indeed, will get checks in their skills. So Rurik will take a track check, which is good. And Martin is going to take an investigate check, also good. So they do. What they notice is that, like, again, almost nothing really is stored here. There's a bunch of crates. The crates are mostly filled with, what would they be filled with? I think something non-flammable, but heavy rock. They're filled with gravel and stones. Something reasonably cheap to get a bunch of, right? He had it moved into here, and it's not going to decay. It's not going to rot. It's not going to catch fire. So this can, but it's heavy enough to move. It's a pain to move. Like Rorik and I'll make Rorik and Tiny make fatigue checks for sure. Because they're moving so many of these. Rorik and Tiny. So Rorik first. Rorik does take a fatigue. So, because they're moving all these darn crates and stuff. Ugh. We're not injured though. So let's get rid of that. We do have one fatigue chip on our sheet here. But lo and behold, they do find that, A, not only is this place holding nothing, but behind these couple crates, there's enough space that a human could squeeze back there. But it does sort of block line of sight. And they're moving a crate and they go, wait a minute, there's space behind this pile. Let's go check it out. And they go check it out. And in fact, there is effectively a trap door here. Now, as this is theoretically an escape hatch, may or may not be locked because it would be locked from the other side if it was. Although that's not necessarily true, right? If he was going to come in here and sneak in this way, then it wouldn't be, I mean, it might be locked this way, right? So, I mean, I'll just give it a roll. I'm going to say that actually this is unlikely to be locked. I'm going to say 4 and 12, it's locked. It is locked. Okay. It is also likely, but it is at least reasonably likely to be trapped too. So let's say, I mean, I would say, let's say 6 and 12 trapped. It is not trapped, strangely enough. The wizard thought the lock was enough. And so when they get to it, they're like, oh, it's actually like a hatch in the ground. And there's not a padlock on it. It is lockable and unlockable from both sides. It's like an old British door. And so I think Rorik is back to it. He's like, well, hold on. And I'll give him... I'll definitely give him a couple, like, I mean, now you could just go, I actually just want to see if any of his picks break more than anything, like what breaks on his stuff. I think if he, if he breaks some picks on it, it's possible he just can't do it at this level until he gets a bonus of some sort. That's sort of typically the rule for locks and stuff is I'll say, look, I'll tell the player, you have 2 shots at this, you have 3 shots at this, and once your 3 shots are, now, if it's super low, if it's lower than their level, I usually just go, you don't have to bother. It depends. It depends on the situation. If there's honest to goodness stakes, if you're timed, if there's a trap on the lock, right, that kind of thing. If there's a chance someone walks in on you, then I'll just go, hey, those are the stakes. That's the ramifications for failing. In a case like this, where the stakes are fairly low, right? I usually will say, look, you have 3 shots. If you can't get it within 3 tries, that lock is beyond you for now, and you either need to get a bonus somehow, or you need to skill up. Like you either need to level up and come back, or you need to somehow get a bonus. I'm not sure how you would do that, but you know, right? But that's usually what we do. So we'll give him 3 tries, and he's going to get it first try, though. He's going to pop that thing immediately. He's like, I got it. It's actually very similar to the other lock, and he pop. And Martin's, I think, like, oh, you're good at that. What else don't I know about you? And Rorik's like, not telling you, kid, right? And he plops down into the tunnel. And so they're in right there in an underground tunnel. They will light some light. But what they do see indeed is that there is some kind of copper wire that runs along some wooden posts that are sort of built into the wall there, and that each of those has some kind of glass tube with a filament in it. So this place is actually, quote unquote, I mean, to the modern eye, it looks like electrical lighting. Of course, none of it works. And so it's very possible that the lightning mage would do something, cast some kind of, spell of some sort to energize the lights. But obviously none of our group can do that. And so they all get down into the tunnel. And I think Rurik looks at her, looks back at the other two and says, let's get one thing straight. We're not touching anything we don't need to touch, right? We come here, we find these rods, we get the rods, we get out. Everything else we leave untouched. And he looks expectantly, and I think everyone can agree with that. I don't think that's a huge ask, right? They're not here to loot the place. Don't get me wrong, I mean, obviously it's a wizard's place. It'd be cool to find a wizardy thing that you could use. Maybe there's a magic item, maybe there's, right? I mean, but I think Ren looks, I think she says, I agree, but with one caveat. What? And Rurik gives her a, what's that? If there are any notes pertaining to the use of the rod, I think I will need to take those. Also, if there's anything at all, any clues at all, indicate what's the nature of this disaster which has befallen Octavio, then I think I would like to take that for future investigation. Rurik's like, okay, but that makes sense, fine. But that's it. Notes, rods. He looks over at Martin almost. Martin's like, what? I'm not interested. Look, we've already pissed off half the town. I'm not interested in also making enemies of a wizard. Rurik nods. Me neither. And then they head through the tunnel. The tunnel ends in, of course, a door. They assume that this door, I mean, it's a relatively short tunnel. It is reasonably the distance between where the tower would be and where this building was. I think they can all go, yeah, it's about 50 paces or whatever. So they assume that this is going to lead into the basement of the tunnel. So I think that Rurik is going to go up to the door and he will start the process of checking the door. He does have traps and he is going to inspect the door. 9, he will succeed by quite a bit. Is there a trap on this door? I'm going to give it a similar chance to before. Maybe it's a 1 in 6 though, and it's not trapped. So, okay, sure. I thought that one would be. Maybe I should have made it a higher chance. Maybe I should have said 1 in 8. Now that I look at the roll, sometimes that just happens. But I'm going to go with it. I'm going to go with the Oracle. The Oracle said no. And I'm going to say that this one isn't locked, or if it is, we'll just give Rurik as much time as he needs since he has popped the other 2 locks without difficulty. I will not do that for other locks in the tower, but just to get them into the tower, no need to make him roll, yet a 3rd lock. So I think they get into the basement of the tower. So give me 1 second. I'm going to grab a drink. I will be right back. You will not notice. I will pause this and cut. So the group gingerly opens the door. Sorry about that. You might have heard the pop can pop there. Not drinking pop. I cannot drink soda. I don't drink soda anymore. It almost sticks to my teeth. Like it's too sweet. It's syrupy and gross. I find it now. But anyway, too much information. In any case, the group sort of opens the door. They're in the basement of the wizard Octavio's tower. And I mean, I think it's so this place. So I mean, what would this basement have in it, right? So this is probably storage for real, probably not gravel, unlike the storehouse. So it is foodstuffs. The place is kept cool. There are boxes around that are pushing out mist almost, right? Little cold air and mist, and gives the place a little bit more of an eerie feel than maybe it deserves. And it does drop the temperature somewhat in here. So it is chilly in this basement, even more so than would be the, whatever, 50 or 55 degrees Fahrenheit or whatever that it typically is going to be underground. And they don't poke around too much, but they do find that what is down here is a cool, dry place to keep food. It's a cool, dry place to keep wine. So there's probably a little bit of a wine cellar down here as well. And I mean, Martin's like, let me just, can we? He pokes around one of the boxes while the others are looking around real quick, right? But they're not poking too far into what's down here. They're just, I think, sort of making sure that nothing down here is the rod. So I think, while Rorik and Ren are like, do you see anything down here that might be? And she's like, no. Martin's like, hold on, let me do my alchemy. And he's going to alcheme. Oh, -3. So he cannot find a way into one of these boxes without causing undue sort of damage or whatever. His alchemy is an 11, and that's not going to fly. Like, he was thinking, I want to get into the box and get some of this stuff, because he thinks these are alchemical, like, coolers, right? Wizard's probably rich. He can probably, no, so many people would not be able to afford something like that, but a wizard probably can. Or he probably has a deal with an alchemist to present him with something that would produce some kind of endothermic reaction that would cool the place down. And there's, let's say 3 or 4, let's say 4 of these boxes around the basement, each one covering like a quadrant of the basement, and bringing the temperature down to probably just above freezing. And he is like, I want one of those so bad. And Rorik's like, no, don't, some other day, man, some other day. And he's just like, fine. He's like, we got to move. So as Martin probably starts to toy with the box, Rorik spots him and is like, taps him. He's like, we got to get going. Come on. Darn it. But, yeah, you're right. And then they head up. And the first floor of the tower is sort of the public floor, quote unquote. And that is obvious pretty quick. Like, the first floor has an audience, like a hall, a dining room, a guest room, and a sitting room, right? It is where the wizard would keep guests if he had a guest, and they would be able to live comfortably on this floor. And he or a servant or whatever, who knows, could go to the basement, get food, wine, bring it up, like that kind of thing. And so this place just looks, looks like there is a fine but rather plain, not super stylish bedroom. There is a sitting room. With a fireplace, but yeah, maybe a fireplace. I mean, I don't know where the chimney goes, but maybe there is one. Maybe there isn't one. Maybe he's using some kind of magical thing. The chimney is against one of the outer walls, and I mean the fireplace. So maybe there is a way to direct the smoke out of the tower. There is sort of almost like a public, it's like a combination foyer, almost a greeting hall kind of, where someone would come in and be met by Octavio. But they probably wouldn't conduct business there. They would probably go into the sitting room, right? So I think that receiving hall might have a place to store your things or put your coat, right? And there's probably a small place to prepare food, like a small kitchen. But nothing here. And there is a, quote unquote, there is a way up. So there is a staircase from that, probably from the kitchen. And it does seem like the kitchen was, right, probably for a servant or servants to work in. It's not really quote unquote part of it. It goes off of that main audience hall. It doesn't seem like the guests were supposed to cook their own food or anything, if that makes any sense. And so there is a stairway leading up, but there's nothing here, right, that they see. So here's what I'm going to do. So I need to fix. So right now, I need to, before anything actually happens in I need to figure out what happened to our guy. So what happened to the tower? Because that's going to determine whether or not there's guards or guardians or traps or encounters, right? Like, I don't know. The wizard could be here. He could be alive. He could be in the sitting room right now or whatever. I mean, he's not, but you know what I mean? He could be there. And so what we need to do is we need to right now, and I could have rolled this ahead of time and I totally didn't. I realized that right now I need to roll to figure out what happened to the tower, and then what is the disposition or the current status of the mage, and any enemies that or whatever might have happened, whoever caused the accident, if there was a cause, and so on. And I think I'm going to let you, I think I'm going to sort of let you in on it a little bit. Like, I will at least tell you what I know here. So I have a natural occurrence, an experiment gone wrong. I have 2 experiments gone wrong, which lead to slightly different results. And so, well, actually, you know what? I'll tell you what, we're going to let you in on, just for as an experiment. You can tell me if you don't like this, because the first time I did this in the rat cellar, I did not let you in on the secret. When I rolled, I just said, oh my, and then that was it, right? And we cut away, and then, and then all the events played out. In this case, I'm going to roll, and I'm going to tell you what I roll, and we're going to see how events play out from there, but you will know effectively what I know. Probably crappier for storytelling, better for the solo role-playing GM experience. You are getting sort of my author experience here. So the first, if I roll a 1, it's lightning was a natural occurrence. And I have to decide then if Octavio is dead or if he's just away. He could have been gone the whole time. So, and I will roll both of those. Second is the lightning's an experiment. Octavio tried creating a storm elemental and it destroyed the lab. So in that case, we know there's a storm elemental. And then I have to roll on Octavio being dead, alive. Maybe he is the storm elemental, right? Like that kind of thing. We're going to get that table. The third is lightning is an experiment gone wrong. He tried to amp up his power using the rod, using the rune rod, and boom. And then there you go. And then I have he might be dead. He might be sort of incapacitated. We'll talk about that. 4 and 5 are attacks. Well, 4, 5, and 6 are attacks. 4 is an attack by a rival. Who came here under false pretenses. And then we'll go, full disclosure, drugged Octavio and then arranged some way to discharge him. But there was an explosion. And then we have to figure out what happened to both of those two. The fifth is that lightning was an attack by his rival from a healthy distance away. His rival is recovering from the attack and is on his way. What happened to Octavio? And then finally, the lightning was an attack by... Well, we'll leave that one. Number 6 is an attack by a mysterious an NPC group. We'll get to that one if it comes up, but it's possible it won't come up. So there's my 1 through 6. So I'm going to roll now, and now you will know what the heck happens. So let's go roll 1d6, and we're going to get a 3. Lightning was an experiment gone wrong. Octavio tried to up his power beyond fourth circle using the rune rod, and boom. And that's what I wrote. He is dead on a 1 to 8. On a 9 to 12, he is incapacitated, possibly stripped of his power, possibly has amnesia. 2, he is dead. So, okay, so we know a couple things there. So what that does is that then gives me a way to populate on the fly. So what I did was I wrote all the different levels of the tower. And so we are here right now. Let me actually grab let me grab something. Here's Tiny and Martin. Copy. Paste. We don't need all these guys. That's sort of silly. But what we could do, but I am going to do it anyway because I'm copy, paste. And I did shrink these down. I like them slightly smaller, to be quite honest. So obviously we are here now. We're in the basement, right? That's sort of where we're at. So what that does is that sort of gives... So I've written down where encounters might happen, and I've written where traps might be. And knowing that he blew himself up, so for instance, this wasn't an assault or an attack. He didn't accidentally create a storm elemental. Or become one. If he became one, that would have been even worse, by the way. That would have been a shitty storm elemental for the group to deal with at this point in time. So I'm sort of glad that one doesn't come up. So that gives me sort of a little bit more of a concept of what might be in here and what might not be in here. So, for instance, he wasn't trying to run out of his place. So if there are traps in place, there probably are still traps. If he's trying to just stop wanderers from coming in or people from invading his sanctum, the traps are probably still in place. I mean, that's a really crappy map. I get it, but, you know, we make do around here. So these guys are in the basement. They have finished sort of the search, the cursory search of the basement. Ren does not think that anything down here looks like it is the rune rods or would be sufficient to hold such a thing. I think she doesn't know. She's just imagining that it would be a little bit grander and a little bit better protected than his storage basement. The place is refrigerated. Martin is very interested in those. He doesn't know the guy's dead, though, so he's not going to just start taking stuff. They're going to look for a way up. I am going to roll super passive perception. As a GM, I would do this behind the scenes. I'm going to roll a quick perception check only for Rurik, who has the 11. And he's not going to see anything. He's not going to spot secret doors, right? Because there is a secret that goes... Oops, that is nothing. I don't know what the hell that is. Stop it. Oop, again, also garbage. Because there's essentially a secret that goes from the basement to the second floor, but they would need to have spotted it. They weren't really searching for it, so I didn't give them any real, you know, any bonuses you can. Oh, I'm going to assist him or anything like that. Like, they're not searching. They were just looking through this place going, okay, we don't think this is it. Do you see anything that might be? And she said no. And that's good enough. So instead, they'll just use the obvious stairway from here to here. Oops, whoa, that was bad. That last one really stunk. Way better, way better. And they will head up, and this one is not trapped. And they go up to the first floor, as we've said already, right? So they had a shot. I should have rolled that before. I forgot. And here we are. And they do know that there's a way up to the second floor from sort of the kitchen that goes up there. So they do find this. I'm just going to roll. It's going to be a wit check for Rurik. Rurik's wit is, an 8. Oh, God. Okay. Right. No. So I know I have Tiny. Those two are going to be first. These two are second. Rurik's going to touch the door, and I think he is going to get trapped. He is going to get shocked because I think through the basement, through the first floor, they're just looking around. They don't find anything. This is just a stairway up from the kitchen to the next floor. I think Rurik thinks it's going to be fine, right? And he's going to touch that thing, and he's going to get shocked. Bam, and he takes 8 points of damage. And it knocks him down into Tiny, right? Because they're standing on the stairwell, and it just knocks him into Tiny. So Rurik does take 8. as the door essentially was electrified. What the hell is that? And so that's minor damage, but you can't shake it off, right? You can't, you know, it is essentially goes straight through to stuff you have to heal somehow. And Martin could heal that if we wanted to. So he gets the shock. He gets knocked backwards. Tiny sort of grabs him before he falls down the steps. What? Oh, what is that? And he's shaking his hand, probably smoking a little bit. Everybody saw the spark. Martin's like, oh, let me take a look at that. So they go down to the kitchen again. And then I think Ren heads up and she will take a look at this with Tiny behind. Not that I care about their exact order, please. Don't, you know, but I think Ren's going to take a look. So she's going to roll rune knowledge and she will succeed. So she rolls rune lore and what she tells him, okay, we need to be careful. We need to be a little more careful from here on. Rune lore. It seems the wizard, it seems Octavio does not want anyone going into his private quarters. And so she looks at effectively the door and the door handle. And so now they examine the door a little closer, right? And the door is a wooden door, but it has sort of metal bracings on the outer rim of the door. So picture just like an archway door, right? Sort of rectangular, but it's an arch at the top. Right, like that. Except the arch, now it looks like a finger puppet with bad hair, with a toupee. And so here's the door handle. And there might be a metal band around the mid of the door. And there's probably metal around the edge of the door, like that. And so she sort of looks and examines and she says, we discharge runes on the handle. He had runes etched on the handle. So one of the things you can do once you get to a certain point, you know, or take the talent for it or whatever, right, is you can etch spells onto surfaces and that they will be discharged when that rune is broken. So you can draw a rune or covered or marred. So for instance, you could draw a rune on the back of this door handle, and when I grasp it, since I break the rune, I break the plane of that rune or whatever, I discharge it. You could draw a rune on the other side of the door that does something like that, right? I don't know what it would look like, but let's say it looks whatever, right? When I open the door, that breaks that rune, and that's going to discharge the spell. Now, I would not be able to see that on this side. And I would open the door, and it would do whatever it does. Blow up, whatever, right? So it's effectively like a rune of warding kind of spell. But the mechanism to discharge it is to break the rune, to cover it, to break its, what do you want to say? Its physical continuity somehow. So I think Martin is going to medical his buddy. He should have 6 on his med kit, because we did fill that back up. Oh no, he marked 3 of them up. Is that true? Oh, we haven't filled up since, yeah. I mean, he'll mark 1 off, sure. Skill test -2. It's probably not enough, strangely enough, to heal him. So I don't think he even gets any hit points back, which sort of sucks for our guy, but so be it. So he's at 32 hit points. Martin bandages the hand so he doesn't get infected or whatever with the burn. And that it's comfortable enough that he can still wield a mace or whatever. But he's not going to physically give him, he's not going to actually give him hit points back. Is there more on the door? Do we know? Ren's like, there could be one on the other side. Is there anything you can do? So that's a good question. Is there anything she could do? She does get one up, so she can succeed on like a 14. Her rune lore is actually pretty good. Her rune lore on my sheet is a 13 right now. So I think she's not a dummy. She's like, well, it's if there is a rune in the door, it is going to be lightning. And so if it's lightning, then what we'll want to do is we're going to want to not be touching this door when we discharge the rune. So maybe a rope will do to open it. Or we could maybe try to get it to discharge harmlessly. She's not exactly sure how you would do that, though, I think. So she says, let's try the rope. And so they will indeed try the rope. So what they're going to do is they're going to get a rope. They're going to tie it around the handle since the handle's been discharged already. And then pull on the door from that way to get that to go. First off, is the door locked? That's funny. This one's not locked. It was trapped. Just enough to sort of dissuade him. I think they're all going to go down as far as they can down the steps. And they'll pull from there. That's going to be a little awkward, I think, pulling from down the steps, since, you know, they could, there's a couple things you could do, I think, in that case. Just because of the way, like, you're going to be down. So a picture pulling down the steps, you're going to be pulling down on the door instead of opening it. So they're just trying to get it, you know, open. I'll give them that much, in the sense that, so they could sort of cheese it a little bit, right? You could put 2 or 3 crates up on top of one another. It doesn't really form a pulley per se, but it would change the direction of the force there a little bit. And so we'll let the group, I would let my tabletop group pull the door open once they establish that there's possibly a runic trap on it. And so we're going to let them pull it. And indeed, that trap does discharge. In quite the, like, I mean, in dangerous fashion, right? It throws sparks spitting out down into the stairway. It absolutely would have hit anyone who opened the door, and probably those behind them as well. But the group is far enough away, I think. The rope is burned, so someone has to mark a rope off. Who the hell has a rope in this party? Rorik does. He used his rope. That rope is gone. The ends, I mean, you could probably use whatever, 10 meters of it. I'm going to mark it. It's a 15-meter rope. He now has 10 meters. Because that rope is singed. Ugh. Hell, that's going to be the rest of this place, huh? I think Ren's like, I'm afraid so. presumably from now on we are in the wizard's sanctum, and I don't think he is going to. I don't think his intent was to leave this unguarded. So I think everything else we should assume is guarded, and we should assume is trapped, probably magically. So I will check, because the rest of them are absolutely unable to. You might be able to see the runes if you look at certain things closely enough and so on, but it is also very possible that they could be etched finely into something, and you'd have to know what to look for. Rune lore is typically the way to detect and identify those sorts of traps. People that are looking for them, I will typically allow them a search to at least see. And the answer to them always is, well, we can just discharge them from a distance or whatever. And usually that will work. So they're going to head up and go up into this next floor. And we'll just move one of them into the next floor. Oops, I just moved the stairwell. Let's get Ren out of there, and then let's do this. Let's move all of this. No, let's move you guys over there. Let's move all of this to the map layer to make sure it's in the map layer. So the second floor is they're in the private chamber of the wizard. And so you step up, there's a little hallway up there, and then there are doors that lead to the wizard's private chamber, bath, wardrobe, etc. Right? They're in, and I don't have a map, but we'll draw a circular map here when we need one in a moment. But they're in the wizard's chambers. So they step up, they go to the first door. Yeah, she's going to check it. She's going to be fairly certain there is nothing there. And indeed, there's nothing there because, at this point, the wizards, right? The going theory is, well, he's trapped the door with theoretically 5d8 of damage. So they don't know that, but we know that. And so it's very likely that anyone who's come up here is incapacitated. And so he doesn't think right. So his bedroom, like, that would be a hassle. Because unfortunately, the wizard could probably disable his own runes somehow, but he would have to do it and then re-enable them every time. You're just going to the bathroom, for crying out loud. What if you have to go to the bathroom at 2 a.m? The wizard's an old guy. He's got to pee a lot, like all of us do. So they don't, Ren is pretty certain that most of these doors inside of this second floor aren't trapped. But she would worry about going from the second to the third floor. She would worry about anything on, chests or whatever. But we think the doors are good. And so we do go into the wizard's private chamber. That's the first chamber there. And so there's, a very nice, it's all wood. Everything's wood in here, furnishing wise. The wizard himself would ideally not be touching anything metal with bare skin. Now, does Ren know this? Let's roll rune knowledge. She does not know any of this. But Hand of Lightning does have the disadvantage that if you touch metal with your bare skin, you take damage and lose magic levels. So now that's going to depend. And since this is metal, so this door being metal would tip her, would give her a little bit of pause. That's very interesting. If she had made that rune knowledge check, knowing about the Hand of Lightning, then she would probably have known that anything metal in here is probably electrified in some way. Otherwise, he wouldn't want to touch it because he would discharge into it and lose part of his magic and so on and so forth. So, but she doesn't catch that. She didn't get that realization. So I think, so anything metal normally, she'd be like, yeah, that's absolutely going to be trapped with the electrical trap, 100%. Everything metal in here is going to be, don't touch it without, right, her trying to figure out how to get rid of the rune. But I think she misses that. So in here though, all the stuff is wood, all the furnishings are wood, all the fixtures are wood, right? And it is a nice, this is the first bit of luxury, I think, that really, I mean, I assume that the sitting room is nice and the guest room is nice and so on, but this is actually slightly luxurious. Silk, fine cloth on the bed sheets. There is a dresser there. Not a dresser, but like a writing desk there. I should probably write this down since we're getting on the hour. And what date was that? The 16th. June 17th is, real quick, administrative work. I'll just write that for now. And then, so in the wizard's bedroom, in Octavio's bedroom. So what is there? There's a fine bed, fine sheets. There is a writing desk with like one of those roll tops, like it closes, right? With a roll top. I love those. Cover. Right? There is a wardrobe. All right, big. It's a 6 foot tall wardrobe, right? You can open it up, the whole thing, right? A mirror. Maybe he was a fancy dresser. I think I like that for Octavio. I do like that for Octavio. He has changed. He has recently changed. As their clothes, his fine clothes, is on the bed, like disheveled, like he took them off and threw them on the bed, thrown on the bed, as though he changed into something else. What else is there in here? So he's got his writing. He's got his, he has probably a little table outside of the writing desk and a chair, where he probably, and like a lamp. And this is where he probably takes his meals. And perhaps there is a half-finished and now gross meal on there. Half cup of wine. With a fine goblet, like a fine wooden goblet. Maybe some gems just in there for decorative purposes. And the other thing which is there, which is a little bit weird and out of place, there are 5 stacks, racks, not racks, stands, 5 stands with armor. So essentially, like suits of armor. Now, it's not great armor. It's not like, but so I'll actually roll. Let's roll professional soldier for Rorik real quick, because he'll take an interest in there. Yeah, and he can see like these. This isn't. It's effectively it looks as though it would be better because it is some kind of scale or plate armor, let's say. That's another profession check for Rorik. So there's a plate, a breastplate there. There are like the whole thing, greaves, everything, and it looks like plate, but is obviously cheap, thin, decorative. There is a chest here at the foot of the bed. And so the group will, right? They take a look around. They decide, well, I mean, we need to search this place. Let's hit up the chest. Let's hit up the wardrobe, right? We need to at least check to see he could indeed be keeping the rods. Here, I would expect them more in a lab, I think, is what the group would probably imagine, or Ren probably is imagining since they're following her lead here. But they should at least search the desk for notes, the wardrobe, and the chest, and they head in, and then all of a sudden, there's an electrical crackle that comes from the wall. So a cable in the wall that is sort of either half embedded but sort of exposed. They didn't notice it before. It comes down the side, goes around the room in a ring. And as a little spark comes down, right as they start to enter the room, a little spark flares down. They can sort of see it. It goes around, and as it touches past the point where each of these pieces of armor is, the suit of armor gets electrified and springs to life. And so now they have 5 suits. Armor springs to life with electrical spark. Now they're facing 5 animated armors. Electric version. I don't know what that means, by the way, but I do have those written up. We'll get to that next time, I think, since this is over an hour. And so that's where we're going to end it. We're going to end it, and next time we'll come back and we'll see if the party can take on these 5 electrical armors. That's a little too many. They're not that tough, but I was expecting 3 or something. But I always give myself a chance to roll too many because I also find that interesting sometimes. And so that's sort of where we're at. So we're going to face 5 electrical armors, and we're going to see how this party does against them when we come back next episode. Thank you for watching and listening. And I would ask you to obviously like, subscribe, the whole YouTube shebang. It does really help if you comment too. Please do that. Again, I appreciate you all, and I will talk to you next time.